Hey, what are you?
Hello, everybody. Melissa had to have something to eat. She thought that we weren't starting until 3:30, so you got me for right now, which is no odds by the looks of it because it says 0 people watching. Must be waiting for you, Monty.
It doesn't always update anyway, dear. I'll keep an eye on it on my phone.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. So yes, we. Well, not we. I thought it was.
Say, what's this wheat shit?
I thought it was 3:30 for some reason today. Don't ask. I don't know. My mind is all wonky. Then I decided to have chicken and cottage cheese and a salad. And Kevin just told me I reeks.
Onion.
No, I think it's more like a dill thingy.
I don't know. There was something in there that was bad anyway. That was like last night playing hockey because I finished up that other salad that you made. And that was more like a Mexican salad. And I don't know, it must have had like,
See, we got people.
yeah, it must have had broccoli or something in it because I was sitting on the bench last night and I let out a burp and it was like enough to gag a maggot. It was like sitting all the way at the other end of the bench.
Hey,
Good thing
Joyce.
there was only three
Hey,
of
Kim.
us.
Anyway, so there is people watching us.
Right.
17 views, it says.
You
6 people watching us, and Joyce and Kim have said hello. So since you listened to us just babble about the fact that we didn't really even know what time it was today, you can tell where our headspaces are.
No, I was sitting here right on time, boys.
Okay, me. I did not know. Anyway.
Keep
When
trying
you're
to
there,
drag me into it.
when you're there, say hello. Let us know who you are. Don't be shy. And if you watch the replay, let us know you watched the replay. We are going to talk today about. This is going to be mostly Kevin's topic. I'm just going to chime in. So
I brought it up.
Usually when we do these, I do most of the talking, and Kevin just interjects.
No, you're still going to do a fair bit of the talking,
But
I'm sure.
Today, this is mostly Kevin's topic because he has stuff that he wants to I was going to say translate. He has stuff.
Oh, probably.
He has.
It's probably going to require translation. Yes.
He has stories and stuff he wants to share in relation.
Well, I think it's more about the topic itself. Like the thing of it is I could get into it in the ways of the fitness world, and towards how it looks in our business. And you can talk to that because you don't like how I put it.
So we have Joyce, Kim, Chantel, Tracy, Jana, Grazie, Serena. Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
That have said hello so far. We have
Right.
sort of 8 people watching. So today's topic is not all this babbling. Today's topic is: do you really want what you say you want? Take it away, Chevy.
So this is something that I thought of. Basically, it was triggered by our last goal for cohort, and sometimes you get all caught up in the moment, and you can convince yourself many things, what you want, what you say you want, what you want to do, and you look at your past patterns and behaviors around certain things. And for me, this was right from childhood all the way up through, I suppose, till I met you and you straightened it out.
Don't say it like that. Anyway, go on.
But do you want what you really say you want? So, like when I was a kid, as an only kid, I'll say it, whatever, doesn't matter. I always got what I wanted. So because I always got what I wanted, it left the door open for me to want many, many things. And to say that, do I want what I say I want? It's like you take advantage sometimes of what that means. Like, what does it mean to actually get what you want? Some of us will do whatever it takes. I'll relate a small example. When I was a kid, there was a TV show on. It was called Airwolf, and it had this specific helicopter, but you couldn't find it anywhere. You couldn't buy it in any store. You couldn't find a toy of it anywhere. So I made it. because it was something that I really wanted. Nobody else had it. I made it out of Lego and I painted it up, and I was the only kid in the whole neighborhood that had a thing that a helicopter that looked like Airwolf, and a lot of my friends were jealous of it and they wanted to play with it and break it and smash it, whatever. I get to rebuild it. But there are other times where we say what we want because you could look at it from the other side. I knew that none of the other kids in that neighborhood would have it. So a lot of the times, and you've brought this up, is that I like to say I want something because nobody else has it, or the one that I have always has to be just a little bit better than everybody else's. And we can also say that with achieving goals, whether in our context of fat loss. Um,
I'm just keeping an eye on who loves the interview.
because a lot of what we talk about in the fat loss industry and fitness industry and what we do is that because fat loss for many people, depending on how they go about it, is a fairly simple thing to do, and a fairly quick thing can be a fairly quick thing to achieve. So when you look at it in that context, and with the fact that there are a lot of magic powders, pills, and potions that can get us there, we often say, okay, well, I want to get skinny. I want to look like I did when I was in my 20s, and I'm now in my 50s. So it all looks like a really good idea, but what it boils down to is what level of effort are you willing to put in? What level of sacrifice are you willing to put in order to achieve that? And for me, the unfortunate thing in diet culture is that the level of commitment and sacrifice, specifically to fat loss, this is just me talking in my opinion, is that it don't seem like that it requires a whole lot of involvement, work, dedication, and things like that to achieve a result. Does that make sense?
Keep going.
No, I'm just asking. Does that make sense?
I'm making notes.
Okay. But so we can always get into this habit of going, well, that's what I want. I want to lose weight. I want to lose fat. I want to look better. I want to get into shape. And then when we realize just exactly how much effort that requires, because I always say this almost every coffee time that we do, people forget how long it's taken them in their lifelong journey to get where they are, where they've put pounds on and things like that, where they're not as fit as they used to be, and don't realize that it's going to take a lot of effort to, or could take a lot of effort and time to lose that, right? So I guess in a nutshell, the way I look at it, do you really want what you say you want? Really boils down to, depending on your commitment level and how much sacrifice that you're willing to make in order to get that.
Okay, let's talk about something else. Or I'm going to be you.
Sure.
Talk about responsibility.
In what context?
In the context of when you say something that you want.
Okay.
So bring it around. I got making notes as I go, so
Yeah,
I can chirp in later, but talk about where responsibility comes into and how you can easily ignore responsibility, or you can sabotage yourself out of responsibility even though you say you want something.
Right. So that's a good point. Sabotaging yourself out of responsibility. So that's the thing. So I guess I only had 2 points to that, but responsibility is huge because in order to achieve a result, you have to be responsible for certain activities or certain methodologies or certain ways of going about it, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes, and I think this is where you're going with this, is that sometimes when we say we want something, we don't necessarily look at the whole picture, right? Mm-hmm. What is required to achieve the result, and what is required to get what it is that we want. And I think in your case, what you're asking me is that there are certain things you might want a better position in your job, for example.
Okay.
Right? So you want better pay, you want a higher position, you want a title, those sorts of things. And so you do what that all looks good on paper because you're going to get this big salary increase and things like that. But in doing so, you end up having to manage people. You have to be responsible. You have to be accountable. There's a lot of things that you now have to do in order to achieve that result. And more often than not, I think this is a really good point. That's the one thing that gets really overlooked is the responsibility. Is taking responsibility. That's whether that's for your actions, whether that's for keeping yourself accountable, and understanding just who it is that you're going to be responsible for or to in terms of achieving your result. Now, if you want to take it and go personal, I think you're talking about where we're currently at with the airplane. So
I'm talking about where you are at in terms of, I think that for me personally, I think that when you say you want something, the question around do you actually want it boils down to how much responsibility are you willing to take for it?
Mhm.
How much are you willing to sacrifice for it? How much effort are you willing to put in for it?
Mhm.
And are you understanding deeper level sacrifice, the deeper level that goes beyond just for fat loss in case or lifestyle change that goes well beyond eat this many calories and eat this much protein, eat this much fiber? Are you willing to because just as you stated, a lot of times people go into things, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with going into them for that, but the goal has to change over time. So a lot of times people will go into things for vanity purposes, for aesthetic purposes in fat loss or lifestyle change, but in vanity purposes and what you were talking about first.
Right.
I want to have the Airwolf airplane, and because I can't buy it, I can't find it anywhere, I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
And my friends are going to be, and Mr. Shevchenko is very much like this. And then can be. Okay. He's actually growing more and more every day. So
yeah, she's polishing this turd.
Anyway, and then so the aesthetics start to come, but the aesthetics can only be kept with deeper level work. So, and when I'm talking about deeper level work, I'm talking about things like radical responsibility, things like understanding the effort that is required to keep something after you achieve it, because it's not really only just about achieving it. I'm talking about the amount of sacrifice that is required to not only get it, but to change the actual lifestyle habits, behaviors, and mindsets to be able to maintain it.
Yeah.
So a lot of times what happens is we go after something with a desire for vanity or aesthetics or whatever, and then either one of two things happens. The novelty wears off that thing and we no longer care about it.
Yeah.
Or we didn't we achieved the aesthetics, but because we only did the surface level work, we're not unable to keep the main thing we're actually after, which is not only being able to achieve the result, we actually want to be able to sustain it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will go into a goal, doesn't matter which goal it is, could be changing your physique, it could be building a business, it could be changing your career, as Kevin said, it could be growing as a person, doesn't matter what it is, but they will go into it thinking only, and you and I had this conversation on a walk the other day.
We did, yeah.
Linear, straight line, everything is going to be perfect.
Yes.
Never thinking or considering that that life actually has to flow and go and happen, despite the fact that you have a goal.
Right. This is a really good point, because when you say, do you want what you really say you want? And in my case, a lot of the time, didn't matter what it was, you always kind of maybe develop this idea, or you can even call it fantasy if you want, of this perfect path, like you said, this linear path I'm going to do this, and
Kevin,
I'm going to start eating healthy, and right away the pounds are going to fall off.
Kevin has these tendencies to go into things, and I've had these tendencies too. But you have these tendencies for sure, still, of going into things with a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Dreamy, perfection-y kind of attitude. Like it's going to go from point A to B and everything's going to run smoothly. There's going to be no obstacles. There's going to be no curveballs.
Right.
And if there are obstacles or curveballs, I don't want to talk about them. I want to ignore it.
Yeah, that's fair, because when I used to work for Sterling as a crane supervisor, and I'd have to go set up a job, my
your guy who runs the crane wouldn't even show up.
No, not that.
Oh.
What do you call Barry?
Your
like
counterpart,
my
your
counterpart,
colleague,
yeah,
whatever.
my colleague or counterpart or whatever. He'd always laugh at me. So I'd get something set up to go do a job. And this is what you're saying. It was always linear. It was always this. It's step 1 through step 12 gets the job done, and step 1 through 12 doesn't take any consideration for step 3 and 4 and 5, 6, A, B, and C because nothing quite went right. So he always used to make fun of me and say, "Well, stop chiseling your plan in stone."
Mhm.
Like, and that's a big thing when you first look at, well, I want the thing. What's the path going to look like to get there?
I remember when I first started this kind of lifestyle change and went into it, I thought about how many pounds I wanted to lose, let's just say. And I went with the best case scenario, which always the best case scenario, technically, the very best perfection kind of scenario is 2 pounds a week every single week.
Right.
So if I have 2 pounds a week to lose and I want to lose 25 pounds or 30 pounds, that means in 15 weeks I should be there. And that was the thought process I went in with. But it never works out like that for many reasons. Not only because life is happening in the background and anything could come up at any time, not to derail you, but to slow you down because you can't be as consistent when there's life curveballs and bumps and struggles. But also because very few people lose 2 pounds every single week over the course of 15 weeks to get there in 15 weeks.
Right.
Very rarely happens.
Yeah.
And it's not, we never go into something like that considering.
This all showed up.
It's been there for a while now. We never go into it considering, what if I get sick? What if my kids get sick? What if something happens at work and my shift changes? What if? And I'm not saying I'm not trying to say that we need to go into them necessarily going, oh, all this stuff is going to fuck up, so I shouldn't start. Because technically you should start in these moments because it's the stressful moments and learning how to navigate them that help you get out of all or nothing altogether. But at the same time, do you really want what you say you want means that basically when you go into something that you really, really are adamant you want to change, there's nothing, not a single fucking thing, excuse my language, that is going to stand in your way and make you give up. Nothing is going to stand in your way and make you give up. And I know this for a fact because I have done it. Mm-hmm. That there's not a thing that once I decided in my head, really decided, I didn't just say, because I talked for a lot of years, but when I decided that I was going to do this thing and change my lifestyle, there wasn't a single thing that came up that stopped me from going forward. Right. It took me 15 years to get here, right, but it wasn't a thing that stopped me from going forward. Right. Same thing goes for any other, when you decided that you were leaving Suncor and going to Sterling Crane, nothing came that was going to stop you. Your job when you got to Sterling Crane was a lot different than you thought it was going to be.
But again, that's one of those things. So I wanted to be a certain thing in the crane industry, right? And my thought process was, by working for a crane company, you're going to be this. Right. Because to me, in my mind, that was a logical way of looking at it.
So let's talk about this then. What is the different pattern of thinking? Because for me, I go into it kind of almost anticipating certain complications are going to happen. I don't go in with them and think, like when I made the decision to go in business for myself, or when I made the decision to go into lifestyle change, and I was adamant I was going to get it no matter what, just like when I left Suncor and created this business, I was adamant I wasn't going back to working in those environments.
Right.
So what is the thought process? And I didn't look at them as perfect, because I feel like if I had gone into it with this perfect mentality, even though it was about aesthetics when I started, right, the fat loss one anyway, mm-hmm, if I had gone in with them with a perfectionist mentality, I would have quit. Right. So it was more of a, no matter what, I'm going to make it work mentality. It's almost like for me, when it changed and when it clicked, I'm so sick of myself. And I always say this to my clients when they ask me these type of questions, but when I talk about my story, I always talk about the fact that I was so fed up with myself and talking and not doing anything, or talking and doing something and then quitting, that I was so tired of my own bullshit that I finally took radical responsibility. When I call it radical responsibility is that, you know what? I'm not a victim to circumstances. I have to accept that I hold the power, and the power is within me to change. And it doesn't matter what my work life looks like, doesn't matter what my home life looks like, it doesn't matter what Joe over there is doing or what Sheila over there is doing. What matters is what Melissa is doing.
Right. And I think so. I think the delineation between the two thought processes is that you look at it from an open perspective, whereas I looked at it from a very closed perspective. But at the same time, because I'm a very analytical person, I look at things as through my realm of knowledge and experience. These are all the things that can bite me in the ass. These are all the things that can derail me. These are all the things that could go wrong, right? The unfortunate part about that thought process, it doesn't matter because I got years and years and years experience in the construction industry, cranes, all that kind of stuff. To have the knowledge and skill set to try and make a plan from point A to point B, trying to encompass all the shit that can go sideways.
So
for you, the thing of it was, this is where the difference is. You looked at it from the perspective is that I am fairly certain at some point in my journey, somewhere shit is going to go sideways. And for you, the way you think of things, your brain is already going to go, okay, when I get to that point, now I have to assess. Whereas for me, I try to assess it all up front. And so because when I assess it all up front, when something isn't, that slaps me upside the head that isn't in my assessment, that's when everything just goes. So it's like talking about.
Because I always talk to my clients about anticipating complications.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, if you're going camping this weekend, what sort of complications, small or big, could you come across? And how, going into that, would you navigate it?
Right.
It's almost like what I call is anticipating complications and planning ahead for certain things that could pop up, and you having a game plan as to how you're going to deal with it. You might not follow through exactly as your plan goes with the strategies or the plan, because technically when you're making the plan, you're by yourself here and you're sitting down thinking about it. But when you're in the plan, you're with other people and there's all these other factors.
Right.
But you can still have a game plan going in. And when I say anticipating complications, I'm literally talking about everything. But I think for you think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying that what happens is you think about all the complications, but you only think about them up front, and when you're in it, you don't think about them. You're thinking that it's all going to go smoothly from there.
That's just it. So you put the plan in motion, and basically
you're thinking from say, if we use camping as the example, if I leave Thursday right till I get back on Sunday night, everything is going to go the way that I have envisioned it.
That's the theory. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but that's what I'm saying. The difference between the two is the fact that you know that at some point along the way that you're going to run into an issue. And you're more than willing to deal with that issue as it arises. So where there's a key difference for that is you're not waiting for the other shoe to drop. If you're somebody like me who has planned it out to the nth degree, and then all of a sudden, you start the activity.
Yeah. So
then you go, okay, well now what did I forget? What did I miss? What's going to bite me in the ass? Right? What didn't I think of now? Because now I'm all of a sudden I'm in it. And when I was a supervisor for a crane company making big lifts, when you got to that point, there couldn't be anything that goes wrong.
Yeah, okay, but let's take it back to like full regular life though.
Yeah.
So
you can understand the concept.
But this is also true of you and I. So this can also be broken. And I'm not trying to criticize you or I. No. But what I am trying to do is trying to figure out where somebody's mindset goes from I really want this, and then they decide to stop because then it's too hard or whatever the case may be, or they're uncomfortable, versus somebody's mindset who says I want this and I want it, and I understand there's going to be obstacles and I'm going to practice my way through them.
Right.
But what I'm noticing too about you and I, and I've noticed this for years, but I really have noticed it lately, is that you're more of a reactive person and I'm more of a proactive person.
Right.
So the difference then between you and I in a lot of cases when it comes to dealing with this is what I want, I'm working through it, versus this is what I want, why the fuck is this happening to me?
Yeah, but I'm only reactive in the context of I'm reacting to a situation or scenario that I didn't plan for. So it's not that I'm a reactive person, because I'm a very proactive person, because I plan the whole 9 yards up front.
But you only plan it analytically. You don't plan it in the other context. So whereas for me, I don't. Well, as for me, the opposite is true. I don't plan it analytically at all.
Right. But I think this is where the divergence is and what you're trying, the point you're trying to make.
Okay.
So for somebody who looks at it and takes, this is what I want,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you know that along the way there's going to be bumps,
Mm-hmm.
but you've already conditioned yourself to learn to deal with the bumps when they're there, because you're not concerned with a specific bump. You just know that something's going to show up. You're not sure what it is,
Or when it's going to happen, nor am I anticipating.
Exactly.
Like I'm not trying to make it happen.
Right. So this is where you can go from point A to point B. Whereas somebody that looks at it from my perspective, and just hear me out on this,
Yeah.
is that you have this perfect path laid out, right?
Yeah.
You want this at point B.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the path that you're going to take to get there.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, there's something wrong halfway between A and B that you're not prepared for.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where you talk about people who lose focus, derail, go down a rabbit hole.
Don't control anything, even though they can control still lots of
Right.
things.
Because now all of a sudden what they've come up against, they didn't anticipate or plan for. And because they haven't done that, then that's the perfectionist or all or nothing mentality, right? Whereas when you get to this spot, well, now I can't perform at my best. I can't do this. My plan is no longer perfect, so I can't execute it.
So I think that we need to address a couple things. One, we need to address the fact that we're talking about you and I, and we both know that you and I have very separate or different personalities, but we also have very, very similar personalities.
Right.
We also know that I have grown as a person. I wasn't always like this. And we also know that you are currently growing as a person. So I think one of the things you're currently in growth. I mean, I'm in growth too, but you're currently in growth that I've already gone through.
Right.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So what I want to let the people listening to us know, or the people who will watch the replay understand, is that just because we're talking about this, and it doesn't mean that if you are somebody who quits along the way, that doesn't mean that you can't change that.
That's right.
Because for me, I also was somebody who quit along the way. But the difference is that once I decided I was going to do this, I did it. No matter what came up, I did it. I worked my way through it. But I had to practice it, talk to myself, talk my way through it, or get coached through it, and truthfully, a combination of all of those things.
Right. And this is where it gets to the point. Do you want what you really say you want? Because the thing of it is that for somebody who, like you said earlier, looks at it from a vanity perspective or from a personal gain perspective, however you want to look at it, where the purpose of getting from point A to B, or what the thing that is you want, doesn't have deep enough meaning.
No, and this is what I have notes. So some of the notes that I have written down are like, there's a deeper, it needs to be the why that you have for changing yourself or growing as a person or wanting a change in lifestyle or wanting to lose fat can't just be, I want to lose 10 pounds.
Exactly.
It's never going to be the thing that moves you forward enough. It's never going to be the thing that drives you when you're unmotivated. It's never going to be the thing that drives you when something happens and shit hits the fan in your life. There has to be something deeper. And what is deeper is going to be different for you than it was for me. It's going to be different for me than it will be for Kevin, et cetera, because it's different for everybody. So what I've learned in my certifications and stuff is that digging deeper into the deeper why is all about asking why. Over and over and over. So I want to lose 10 pounds. Yeah, but why? Like, how is that going to make you feel? How is that going to change your life? What is that going to do for you?
Yeah.
Then you're going to say something like, well, I'm going to feel better in my skin. I'm going to be able to go shopping and I'm going to want to be in the pictures with my family. Now we're getting to a deeper thing.
That's
because
right.
Realistically now, you're saying that you stay out of pictures with your family. You hardly ever go shopping because you don't feel good shopping. You whatever.
Right.
You're scared of going into the gym because you whatever. And you want to have those things. So that goes deeper. But then why do you want those things? Why are those things important to you? Because I want to be able to be involved with my kids as they grow and as they age and, do things as a family. Because I want to be able to go on a date night with my husband or, this is something taboo. Maybe people don't like to talk about, but I want to be able to have lights on when we have sex and all those kind of things matter.
Right.
So then it gets deeper again and deeper. And this is the kind of thing that you need to be doing when you're trying to figure out your ultimate why. Because your ultimate why, it can be that you want to lose not your ultimate why, but your surface level goal can be that you want to lose 10 pounds or 50 pounds or 100
Yeah,
pounds
you
or
want
20
to look,
pounds.
you want to look, you want to better yourself. You want to look better, be more attractive.
But at the end of the day, the deeper goal goes deeper than that. Why
Right.
do you want those things? Why are those things important to you? How are those things going to change your life? How are you going to feel when you achieve it? What does it mean for your overall life if you get here or if you don't do it?
Right.
And if you don't do it, so when I got to those positions, for me it was like, if I don't do it, I'm going to feel this way that I currently feel forever or worse. And I don't want to live like that.
Yeah.
I no longer want to have to go to my closet and basically cry every time that I need to get ready to go out because I have nothing that fits or it doesn't fit me right. I don't want to constantly have struggles with my IBS symptoms and my endometriosis and my headaches and everything else. I want to be able to see if I can control those things by getting healthier.
Yeah.
I want to feel like if I want to go for a run, I want to be able to go. I want to feel like if we decide to go on wherever and go for a hike, I want to be able to do it. You know, all of those things. If my niece and nephew want to go do something outside and play, I want to be able to keep up with them, as an example. I mean, I don't have kids, so I'm using my niece and nephew as an example. So, and then when you understand your why, it's about taking and understanding that there's a certain level of effort, of sacrifice, of radical responsibility that comes with saying, or comes with the action that is required for that goal. Because we can all talk as much as we want about what we want. And I talked for years and years and years about wanting to hire a personal trainer, wanting to change, wanting to get more fit, wanting to have a leaner physique, wanting to feel better in all aspects of my life, and didn't do shit about it except for yo-yo dieting all the time.
Right.
Back and forth between Atkins and this and that and the other. And then when you decide, though, when you really decide, now you're taking action, and the action that you're taking aligns with where you want to go, but it also has what we were just talking about, which is, I know there's going to be obstacles because life is happening around me even though I have this goal. And while I can't foresee all of the obstacles that are going to happen, I can imagine, based on life and how life runs, that there are going to be them. And either I'm going to hire a coach to help me navigate them and help me understand them. Like, how do I go on vacation and still maintain my habits? How do I get through a holiday like Christmas or summer or Thanksgiving or Easter or whatever? How do I deal when I have family members who are sick or, you know, those kind of things? How do I deal when my kids get sick or when I get sick or when work changes and now I don't have as much time? How am I dealing with all of those things?
Right.
And that's either through, as I said, hiring a coach and like another really good example of this is what happened to my business in 2020. So in 2020, when COVID hit and I couldn't pursue my in-person business anymore because I couldn't take clients in person, I either had two choices. Either the business was going to go completely down and I had no money, or I had to pivot online. And the choices between pivoting online were trying to do it myself with no real, except for what I had done in little bits and increments so far, which was really getting me nowhere, or hire a coach, fairly expensive when you think about it. And it was expensive because Kevin and I both thought, oh, do we want to spend this money right now? But there was those were the only two choices. Either try it on your own and likely stumble, fail, and spin your wheels with the chance of no success, or take this on where they're saying, you know what, we're going to get you there.
Right.
And so we took it on. So it's like, again, it's taking that risk, I'll say too, because there's an element of risk because there's fear involved. And whenever there's fear or anxiety or nervousness, even though there's some excitement to what you could achieve, there's an element of risk. Right. Because you're taking a risk basically on yourself and on your ability to show up and on your ability to do the thing and on your ability to make the sacrifice, on your ability to be radically responsible.
Right.
But when you take on that radical responsibility, you can no longer play the victim. And this is why I think people avoid it.
Right. And I think one of the biggest things to kind of cap that all off is that do I want what I really say I want? Right now, we've been talking about it fairly high level and for fairly big, significant changes in your life.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just take it to the fat loss journey. So, do I want what I really say I want? That can be so granular. Like, so you often talk about when a client says to you, I had X, Y, and Z instead of my meals. I went off my, blah blah blah
Mm-hmm.
blah blah. So the thing of it is, and this is the biggest thing that I've learned, that I've been learning, I should say, over the last little while, because we've now gotten myself onto a fixed calorie number and things like that, because there are certain goals that I want to achieve. Now you can take it so granular as, oh, I want a cheeseburger. Why do you really want what you say you want? Do you really want that cheeseburger? Now you got to look at it and you take it in the context of, why do I want that? Why do I say that I want that? Do I really want it?
Yeah, so
Is
this
it
is
something
good
that's
because
going to benefit me?
this is good because this is not zooming out to me. This is zooming in. So
Mhm.
this we just did the whole zoom
Zoom
out
out.
on the whole bigger
The big
picture,
yes.
like the mindset part of it.
Yes.
But when you zoom in now and you look at the smaller things that make, do you really want what you say you want? It's not about necessarily having to say no to the cheeseburger, because we all know that one of the things that Kevin and I talk about most is not having an all or nothing mentality, no restriction, no elimination, no deprivation. Right. But one of the things that I teach, and I teach it deeply, is being intentional and mindful about your decisions and asking yourself why. So one of the things that every single person who's ever coached with me, but more so, I guess, the people in my longer term coaching hear this a lot, is you need to always ask yourself why. Whether it's a yes for you or a no for you, why is it though? Why is it a yes for you and why is it a no for you? So this is what Kevin's getting at, is I want the cheeseburger, but why do I want it? Why do I want it now? Am I hungry? Is it going to serve me? Does it align with my goals? Does it align with the values I have for the person that I want to become? And how is it going to affect the overall bigger picture?
Right.
Because if I didn't plan for that and now that's going to put me over my calories for the day, or more specifically for the week, or for the day, let's just say, and then if it puts me over for the day, in order for me to stay within my calorie deficit now for the week to achieve the fat loss, I have to take calories away from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Am I willing to do that all for a cheeseburger?
Right.
Those are the kind of things. Or you can look at it and you can go, okay, I want a cheeseburger. I'm in a moment whereby the cheeseburger, celebrating with my husband or with my wife, or we're going out anyway, I'm going to have the cheeseburger, because the cheeseburger now in some, I don't know, way, shape, or form makes sense. Right. I kind of plan to go out anyway, so I'm going to have a cheeseburger. That's going to be my thing, but I'm going to have a salad with it or whatever. And I'm going to have water and not pop or whatever. Right. I'm still going to make some smaller sacrifices. The cheeseburger is still, though, going to be on my menu for today, right, or whatever.
But I think bigger picture, a little more granular of this discussion, the purpose of this discussion of trying to really dig into, do I really want what I say I want, boils down to being able to apply that to every aspect of your life.
Yes, and I do want to point out, and I think I already said this, but I'll point it out again, it takes practice. Like that doesn't come naturally to a lot of people or to anybody until, I shouldn't say that. It doesn't come naturally, and I will even say to anybody, until they practice it.
Exactly.
Because no matter what you struggle, some people don't struggle with fat loss. They don't need fat loss. Some people don't struggle with lifestyle change. They're whatever. But you will struggle in other areas of your life, and the same rules will apply. You still need to understand why you're doing what you're doing versus, or why you're not doing what it is you say you want to do to achieve the goals you want to achieve. I want to read you this. So
just before you do that, I want to.
There's a comment here.
Okay, yeah.
You can't see it here.
That's okay. But that's also a very good point. Avoidance.
Well, that's what I was getting at with you and the radical responsibility.
Right.
But go on.
So sometimes we go after what we want with every fiber of our being. But sometimes, with what you were just saying, sometimes we put up this massive avoidance to achieving what it is that we really want when certain things get in our way.
I think that comes down to a couple of things. I think that comes down to self-sabotage in some ways, yeah. And it also comes down to a lack of emotional regulation. it's really, really hard for people a lot of the time because we are emotional beings and we make a lot of our decisions through emotion.
Mhm.
It's really, really hard for us to step back, zoom out, and ask ourselves, is it that our emotions are dictating this because we expected something that now we're not getting? Or can we take action despite this, even if it's not exactly as we envisioned it? Right? Or it could also be on the other end of the spectrum again, and this is where we're digging into the whys and stuff and going deeper than just surface level comes in, because you could be sabotaging yourself because you're scared of what it means when you achieve the thing.
Exactly.
When you're scared of what it looks like for your life, for your family, for all of the things when you achieve the thing. And some people are also, and this is not a dig at anybody, but some people are scared of hard work.
Yes.
Some people are scared of hard work when they're in it and thinking, oh my God, I have to live like this forever, without anticipating the fact that it gets easier, obviously, the more you practice it. It doesn't feel nearly as hard over time.
So go ahead.
So
go ahead and read that,
Melanie said, and she's talking in reference to you being an analytical person. She said, I get it completely. She's a person who's an analytical person who is an analytical planner forgets in the heat of the moment that they have the tools and resources to get themselves out of the sticky situation that arises. They just get hung up on the fact that it wasn't planned for. Sounds like my husband too, she said. So actually, no, because this is really good, because I love these kind of conversations.
That's very well said.
She said that's her husband too, because I think that is you, because I can see you being somebody you forget in the heat of the moment when you're like all afire.
You get all frazzled.
When you're all afire and frazzled,
yeah.
You forget that you have the tools and resources to get yourself out of the situation.
Yeah.
And this is like a conversation we had walking over there the other day. I said, yes, but Kevin, you have this, or you have this power.
There's another side to that too.
Okay, let's hear it.
The other side to that is sometimes you don't want to go to those other tools and resources because you don't want to admit that you made a mistake, or you don't want to admit that you had this grand plan but it didn't go that way, right? So that's another reason why sometimes we don't use the tools in our toolboxes, because now we've got to admit that we did something wrong, or that what we had planned or anticipated didn't work. So you get that thought process in your head, and I'm speaking from experience, is that's one of the biggest reasons, I think, for me personally, why you would freeze up in that moment and not use the other resources, because now you have to admit you did what you had planned isn't going to work.
Okay, no, that makes sense. So I think really that's the gist of what we want to talk about today.
Is, yeah.
I would just go and I would give it an overview of saying that basically what I guess we're trying to get at is that, and you can give your overview too if you want, but I guess my main points of what I wanted to bring to the table from this conversation is that, first of all, just because you're struggling, or just because you seem to be a person who shows up and then quits and shows up and then quits, doesn't mean that that's who you're destined to be. Right. You can
change it.
I will say fight. You can fight through those things because you're going to fight for yourself. But you have to be willing to fight for yourself. You have to be willing to understand, first of all, that you're not a victim and that you're not broken and that you do have all the power. But it's not only understanding that, it's accepting it. And then once you accept that, basically what you've done is you've taken radical responsibility. And once you take radical responsibility, technically at the end of the day, there's nothing that can stop you, because you realize that all the other stuff going on is still going to go on, but you're going to make it work through it. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to look linear. It's not going to be a straight line, but you're going to learn through practice to go from A to B like this instead of like this.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing that I would like to point out before Kevin gives his little blurb at the end is that when it comes to lifestyle change and fat loss, because I want to bring it back to that because that's who we are, surface level is great. Surface level is going to get you where you want to go. It's going to create outside results. You are going to see aesthetic change as long as you're doing it right and you're doing it consistently. But the surface level stuff is never going to help you sustain it, keep it.
Exactly.
And I say that because I know, because I've been there. I've done I even competed on stage, walked out in this little skimpy bikini. You know, I was fucking hardcore self-discipline. And I lost it all because I still was only surface level when I did that stuff. And so the deeper level is important. The deeper rooted stuff, the getting to the root, the understanding that the I want to lose 10 pounds is not the why. It's not going to be a deep enough why to keep you going. And I gave all the rest, so I'll let you one.
Yeah, so just to tag onto that, because that's actually kind of it right there in a nutshell, even from my perspective, is the fact that digging into the why. So that was the gist of why I wanted to talk about this, was to be able to give some examples of what people say they want,
Mm-hmm.
and then to have a look at what level they really want it, and what level of sacrifice, what level of work, what level of growth, and all those things are they willing to put into that. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that far too often, it's very easy for us to say, "Oh, I want that," because in today's society, and like I was trying to say earlier with fat loss specifically, you're inundated daily with ads and things like that says fat loss can be done instant, and it can be done without all this exercise and dieting and this and that and everything else. So it's sometimes I want that because it gives us instant gratification as well.
Absolutely.
So you think I really want that because I'm going to feel better when I achieve it or when I have it. I really want that because I can show somebody that I did it. So the whole basic point of, from my perspective, is giving you the awareness as to why do you want what you say you want.
Right. Yeah. It's just digging into and asking yourself a consistent over and over and over why though.
And
why though?
And for me, the reason that it was triggered is because we see a lot of people who come to us who say, this is what they want to achieve, this is what they want to do, and then you can have a conversation with them and explain to them that you've got to go deeper than surface level in order to achieve what it is that you want. And not quite often, but often enough, there are people who don't want to go below the surface level.
No, because below the surface level is where it gets really hard. Because below the surface level means there's a mirror right here.
Right.
And you have to look no deeper than yourself.
So, but
that's very deep.
And that's a huge deterrent for some people because they've taught themselves that everything that has led them to where they are is not them.
That's what I mean. And that's why I talked about radical responsibility, because technically radical responsibility is even saying that, you know, there are certain things in my life that maybe weren't necessarily always my fault. But now I'm at a point where if I want to improve, if I want to change, if I want to do something different, if I want a different life, it's on me to do that.
Right.
So I need to accept that responsibility.
And I think that's why your motto is that you want to give women their badass power back. Mm-hmm. Because you want to take all that, what do you call it? All those excuses. They're not necessarily excuses. Some of them go really deep, and some of them are very, very damaging.
I don't necessarily that I'd call it all excuses. Some of it's excuses, but I wouldn't necessarily call it all excuses. But I get what you're getting at. I'm sure everybody here knows what you're getting at too, because you. And I want to release them of that.
Yes. And
help them understand and work through the path towards growth, change,
exactly,
power, and standing in it.
Yeah.
To say, wow, I did that.
Because
I achieved that. I was able to do that.
That's the biggest win.
I'm stronger than I thought, or whatever.
That's the biggest win out of the whole thing. When you achieve what you say you really want, mm-hmm. there is no better feeling.
No, exactly. And when you do the this is why I always teach my clients and talk to my clients and try and empower my clients to do the harder thing in the moment. And sometimes the harder thing is saying yes to the donut. And sometimes the harder thing is saying no to the donut. Or sometimes the harder thing is going to bed. And sometimes the harder thing is waking up early in the morning. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's going to bed early and waking up early or whatever. The harder thing doesn't always sound like an extremely hard thing, but it's hard in the moment. Yeah. And I always encourage my clients to make those harder choices because it builds up the confidence and the self-belief and the self-trust we're trying to create so that over time, you trust yourself enough to know, you know what, I can do this.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we're aiming for. Anyway, I think that's it.
That's it.
Okay, that was a good one. I enjoyed that conversation. I hope everybody else did too. Whatever you got from this one, if anything stood out at all, let us know in the comments. When you watch the replay, let us know you watched the replay. And thanks for anybody who watched it either part way or all the way, or who will watch the replay. Okay, thanks. See you next time.